Okay, we're live, guys. We missed the intro. I don't know how to do the intro, but welcome everybody to the Figure Guys podcast. The poor daddy, David Fine, and Tolkien Tyler Peters can't make the show today, so it's just us three guys. So Brutus Valentine, thank you for joining me again today, mate. At least someone could make it.
Thanks for having me here. What I have to say is the Australians have taken over the show, and that's how it'll be from now on. Right, the down under dogs are on top. Yep,
the down under dogs. The Victorian himself. And look, guys, we've got a very special guest today. He's one of the best LJN customizers going around today. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Alan Carpenter. How are you?
Good. How are you guys?
Good, thanks, Alan.
Wonderful. Mate, I appreciate you coming on the show today, mate. It's going to be just us three, so there's going to be a lot of talking between the three of us. But I'm going to shoot straight over to some questions from Mr. Brutus Valentine himself. Brutus, take over.
Yeah, thanks so much for coming on, Alan. I mean, yours is a name we've seen a lot popping up on the forums over time, but you're not like self-promoting a huge amount. But Tyler, who unfortunately can't be here, he's done some research and he's put together some questions, and he's really interested in sort of the nature of some of the characters you do, because you move outside that WWF realm. So on behalf of Tyler, he wanted to know, so when did you first start collecting wrestling LJNs, like back in the day?
Back in the day, probably I was 6-7 years old, like everybody else. I think I had just a couple of them, and my buddies had a couple of them, and it was the same kind of deal where we just kind of got together and beat them around, and mostly was just.
So you were obviously a mid-'80s kid, mate. When were you born? Late 70s?
Yeah, 79. Yep.
79. So you remember watching WrestleMania 1?
No, I don't. My first memory of it was WrestleMania 3.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
That's a big one to come in on, yeah. And so back then, go, Zash, yep.
No, Brutus, you take over, go.
Oh, no, we've had similar stories from the guys, because we're talking about a lot of characters to collect, but a lot of guys when they were young had a few, their buddies had a few, and they get together after school or in the schoolyard and play. Did you have a ring at the time?
I never did. Still don't own one.
Yeah. And back then, were you more of a face guy or a heel guy? Like, who were some of the guys you had directly?
I was definitely a face guy. I pretty much probably fell in line with most of the kids back then with Hulk Hogan, Ultimate Warrior, and I did have a couple. I guess I've come into more liking the heels the older I get.
Yeah.
Back then, like Terry Gordy and King Kong Bundy and Ted DiBiase, like I couldn't stand those guys, but now the older I get, I'm more of a fan of the heel, I guess,
Yeah, the heels get the best lines, and so that sort of leads into another question from Tyler. He wanted to ask, what were some of your favorite promotions that you watched on TV back when you were young, and other sorts of wrestlers who stood out?
Sure. Really back then, I remember just getting to watch mostly NWA and the WWF stuff. And the NWA was on a fuzzy TV channel, so it was kind of one I had to there. But yeah, I always kind of liked I like both a lot, but I always kind of liked the NWA stuff. It just seemed a little more grittier or less gimmicky. The gimmicks too, but like I was always kind of like the tough guy NWA stuff. So
yeah, it was certainly a tougher sort of style, and gritty is a good term, where the WWF, their production was becoming slicker and more slick. So yeah. So what do you've got a question, I think, Zash?
Yeah, on your customs, Alan, you you tend to do a lot of different territories like NWA and stuff like that. What's your influence on your customs? As in wrestling territory point of view.
Yeah, I mean, as far as influence on it, like I just have good memories of the NWA stuff. And as I got older, I kind of became more of a fan of the territories stuff, Mid-South and WCCW and stuff like that. And then as I got in this group here, obviously Kevin Swales is like, he has a ton of knowledge on the territory stuff. And me and him became pretty good friends on here. And he's very influential in the way I do mine. And Jeremy Rieger on here, he's definitely influential to me. Just he uses all the LJN parts and stuff, and like he's pretty much underrated. I feel like you don't see him on here a lot because I think he might only put out 1 or 2 a year. He spends a lot of time on what he does, but like he'll come up and he'll say, "Hey man, I'm getting ready to do this Mr. Perfect," and you're looking at what he starts with, and this is a beefcake face and 10 different body parts. And by the time he's done, man, I mean, it's just crazy good what he can do with them. And he kind of pushes me to try to do more of that stuff. I mean, I'm definitely not as good at the sculpting of faces and stuff like that as he is, but I'm trying to get there. And, Swells and I went in and we both did this Giant Gonzalez and the Elegante at the same time. And like, I mean, as good as that dude is, if you want to get pushed to do a good job on one, let him say, "Hey man, why don't we release these 5 minutes apart from each other on these groups, And that'll push you to do a good job right there.
I think Zash looks like he's gone into a glitch, so I'm not sure if he's still talking or not. It definitely looks like he's gone into
Tell me a bit more about that. You guys keep talking. I'm going to try and fix up this glitch. Give me a few moments.
Okay, you guys no problem. No, it's good. Kevin Swales is he's it's interesting that you guys are contemporaries of each other, because I like I always refer to his work as that old school style, and he also has characters from the territories, and that's good to see, because the WWF LJN, obviously the connection, but there's no limit to who can be made, and there's guys down in the territories who cut their teeth down there and really makes for some interesting characters. So what characters have you put together other than El Gigante and that from those territories?
Great Kabuki.
Yeah.
I don't know. I probably got him looking around here. I want to do a Gary Hart, and he beat me to it, so I got to let that cool down a little bit before I can do one. You got to stand up next to Kevin. And but we kind of went together on that Elegante thing, and then I think we're going to end up doing a little bit more of that. We kind of talked about doing, or maybe where we put them out at the same time, but I'll probably start getting beat up on all the likes that he gets, and we'll back off of that for a little while. Maybe.
Yeah. I think we might have lost a little bit of glitchiness there. We'll blame Zash for that. He's causing. Kevin's Gary Hart was pretty good, and there were some big characters down in Texas. I mean, Gary Hart was booking down at the time, and you mentioned the great Kabuki. Any chance of that? Did you have a look at doing Muda or?
Oh yeah, I did a Muda. That's a whole nother thing. Like, I did this Muda. Yeah. It was one of my first ones, and I've probably made 6 Mudas to sell. So I'll show you my Muda. I'm sure everybody's probably tired of seeing it. I post it, and everybody else has posted it some.
No, there we go. Yeah. And some guys who didn't. Some guys who didn't really follow the territories back then in the NWA probably don't realize how big the Great Muda became quite quickly. And, he really could have been something huge. And it was that people were just learning about the Japanese style a bit. And Muda, who I think was a Gary Hart creation as well, almost took him all the way. But then, of course, his career went in a different direction. So, yeah. Oh, well, we've got Mike Steyer. He's got, it's just flicked off. Zash it up. I think it said El Gigante was great. Maybe the figure was, the wrestler maybe not so much, but he was a big dude anyway. I tell you what, that brings up an interesting question. If making a figure like that must cost so much in materials to mold something like that. So what about Zash? Do you have issues along those lines with actually, you know, how much money you have to put in for the creation of your figures?
Well, it depends if you're making it for yourself or if you're making it for someone that wants to pay not much money for a custom figure. It's something that is a labor of love, and I've heard Alan Carpenter say that a few times before as well. It's some figures just you can't warrant selling unless you get sick of looking at it, and then you just sometimes cut it at a loss because these figures sometimes you're chopping up, you know, figures that cost a fair bit, or other times you're putting money in for a head, you're putting in the money for maybe decals, you're putting in money for this and that, and it's something. If you want to make something for yourself, it's fantastic. But if you're doing it to sell, then sometimes you've got to look at costs because people don't always want to pay big money for a custom. Do you find the same thing, Alan?
Oh yeah, for sure. Well, like pretty much. I mean, I'll charge $125 for. I mean, that's what I want to clear when I'm making one. And there's figures like I just tell people straight up, if there's one that I can't make for a reasonable amount, I won't do it. And I got a good example of that here. I was talking about Jeremy Rieger earlier, and he made this Rick Rude, and this is how we became friends. And I tried my hardest just to copy this thing because I love the one he made so much. And I'll show you a picture of that one here. But this thing is Jake the Snake legs, Tito torso, Corporal Kirshner arms, and a Hercules head. So, like, you know, you're not making too many of those and selling them at $125 and doing any good on them, you know.
And then you got the belt 100%. As well, too.
And the hours you put into it, that would have taken a lot of hours.
And that one, I just wanted it to turn out good. And it's not Jeremy's. It's not what his is. I really like it, and I couldn't sell that one no matter what now. So, but I've been approached about that one times, and I kind of just like, man, I don't know. I don't think I can do that and make it fair for everybody, you know.
That's exactly right. I'm making a Yokozuna at the moment, and I've managed to get his body weight up to 725 grams. And in LJN terms, what's a King Kong Bundy is about 420? Is that right, guys? Somewhere around there.
450, I think. He's almost a 1-to-1 pound to gram ratio. Yeah. I can look it up.
I was going to the extent where I would look up the weight of King Kong Bundy in real life, and I would look up the weight of Yokozuna in real life and try and get a certain scale difference between them to see how much kilos or how much grams I could put on Yokozuna to try and make him look as close to what he actually was in real life. Because I've made a Yokozuna before, and I've had people say, you know, the backside's not big enough, or this isn't big enough, and that's not big enough. And I'm thinking there's not enough clay in the world to make this guy big enough. But this time I've gone all out, and I even went to the extent where I've made a mold of this figure, and the resin's running out really fast. I've never seen so much resin go into a figure. And the funny thing was, I weighed the Yokozuna after I made a resin cast, and he weighed substantially less than the prototype that I've made in the first place, because resin is such a lighter material than the rubber and the putty that I've made the other one out of. And I was so disappointed to see the weight of it in resin. I was expecting it to be similar, but yeah, it's funny how the materials can weigh so much difference.
Yeah.
So Alan, you mentioned before that you've got some 3D scans of your customs that you've been making, so you can do them again later on down the track. And I've noticed there's some people doing some 3D printing of your customs. Do you want to talk us through a bit of that?
Well, yeah, actually, I don't know how exactly we got to that point, but around, which at that point I only had probably about 30 LJNs of the original LJNs, and I just had been picking them up. My wife and I do a lot of flea markets and yard sales, and she has the same sickness I have, and it's not quite to the point of hoarding here, but, you know, give it some time. But I picked those up over the last 20 years of us just yard selling and stuff like that. But, you know, that kind of came to a screeching halt, and I wasn't seeing stuff anymore. And I didn't know much about the later series and stuff. So around Christmas time, I bought a Kamala off of a guy. And then about a week later, it's Kevin Pelkey, one of these guys in the groups. And about a week later or something, he texted me and said, "Hey, sometime we need to talk about getting me one of these mudas that you made." So that kind of struck up a friendship between him and I, and we talk every day now. It's kind of like what Tom Ward said. Like Tom and I talk constantly. Kevin and I talk a lot, and I've probably bought close to 30 or more probably LJN since Christmas, just using the money from the customs and stuff I've done. That's kind of what I've been trying to fund it with, because, as high as everything is now, there's really no other way I'm going to be able to get them. And I still got a few of them to get. But so I made that Muda, and a few people, I think I made 5 or 6 Mudas. And I like you've talked about on it before, like burnout is a real thing. And I mean, you get sick of doing the same guys over and over again. But, if you're trying to make the money to, for your collection, and you just do what everybody's wanting you to do. And so Kevin ended up having an idea about getting into some 3D printing and stuff. So he's been scanning some of the new ones that I do. And before I paint them or anything, I send them up to Maine. I'm in Indiana and he's in Maine, so it's a lot of shipping going on. And I send them up to Maine, and he scans them and saves that. And then he'll ship them back down to me, and I'll go ahead and finish out my customs or whatever. And then, so the thing is, like, now next time somebody wants a Muda, I don't got to start from scratch and make that Muda over again. It'd be the worst. It'd be a paint job. Or also the 3D scans. I know I've talked to you a little bit about this. The resin doesn't crack. They're fragile for sure, but like how the epoxy cracks and kind of moves away from your rubber figures, and when you feather it out like that. Like I heard you say before, you can set it in the shelf and walk away, and 2 months later you come back and it's got a crack in it. You're getting away from that with the resin. Nothing's moving around. So I'm still trying to kind of get used to that. I mean, I like doing the rubber ones for sure still, but like I think it's a good idea. I mean, it's nothing hurt, a little bit of time for me to send them up there, and then
it's gotten to the stage for me personally where I can't stand doing rubber customs, because I'm doing one at the moment that I'm just going to be doing to cast it, and you're holding it while you're painting it. You're putting it in different positions, and if there's a bit of clay on the arm or something, it comes off the rubber, and you've got to get that back down, and all these little issues with it that just drive me insane. You've got a resin figure that's all one piece. You've got no issues. You paint it, you hold it, you can grab it as hard as you like. There's no issues anywhere, This thing ain't going to break in your hands. So, Brutus, we've got a question from Shad.
One question from Shad, that's right. So, Alan, Shad's asking, so if you had to choose one custom that you made, which would be your favourite? So he's going straight to the top with that question. And Shad's a regular question asker on the show. Yeah. Well, so for you, Alan,
I would say if I had to say a favorite one, like I have a hard time other than if that animal that I had in the competition last year that Zosh beat me up on, I had posted it in a Road Warriors page on here in a different group I was in, and Road Warrior Animal had commented on it and said how that it was a really cool figure and that. And then 3 days after that, he passed away. So it geeked me out that, that he liked it. Some of his family members are on there and they liked it, and that was good enough for me. I was excited for that. And then he'd commented on it. So I'd have to say that's my favorite one. I could never get rid of that one. So
yeah.
How did he see that figure?
I'm in a Road Warriors Facebook group. Like a family. A lot of his family and Hawk's family are in that group also. So like a lot of times they'll like your customs. I hadn't seen him comment, but I was thankful, that he commented on there. Kind of made my week,
Yeah. Yeah. It's a real reminder that what you guys are working with is real people. All right, they were playing a character, but some of them were playing a character for life, and that's blurred. We're not talking about, fantasy creations for cartoon shows like Megatronosaurus or something like that. I don't know. I might have offended a few collector fields there. But these are real guys, and, they've put their body and life on the line, and, a lot of them paid a high price. So I reckon that must be an amazing feeling for the customizers when the actual wrestler himself, especially we're talking in the greatest top 10, the Road Warriors, greatest top 10 legends of all time. And then his unfortunate, passing just a few days later, which rocked the community quite a lot. So well done, Alan. That's something that, you can treasure forever. You can retire now, and you can give the other guys a go if you want. So I hope, Shad, that was a really good question. And that's where Alan's coming from on that one. I suppose I could ask, have you had any real stinkers that you didn't realize were like that, or do you just use them as a learning process from one step to another?
My first couple, I've sold them since then, and I wasn't real crazy about those where I was just learning. I got one that'll be coming out here soon that I love the wrestler. I love the idea of it. But when I was finished with it, it just really wasn't what I was hoping it would be. I'm not sure why, but
I guess say as a person who doesn't have the abilities that you and Zash do, sometimes you got to let the public decide. Because the creator can be really critical of their own work, and it might not be what you saw in your head, but once you release it to the public, people see it differently, and then often you have to come back as the artist and see it in a different light. And you might have wanted it a certain way, but there's a thing in art, the happy accident, where sometimes things go in slightly different directions, and you let the public judge. So that's one way of considering it. It's not a lesson for you customizers there, but it's sort of like we're our own worst critics in many ways, unless you're an internet influencer and you're not, you just love yourself. And so, sometimes it's good when guys on the forums give feedback to the customizers and say, yeah, that's really great, and, that's fantastic, as opposed to those guys who just say, oh, is that the best you can do?
Yeah.
How true is that?
Yeah, I love the comments as much as any of it. Like, I can't wait to get, likes are great and all that. I can't wait to hear all the comments, the stories of people. Oh, I see them here. I was at the Omni and, Sportatorium and here and there. I love that stuff. I look forward to that as much as any of it.
Yeah, that's right. That's exactly right. What you were saying, Bruce. It's I've been close to not even posting a figure on there that people just have loved to death, and it's changed my whole view of the figure as well. Sometimes as a customizer, you can be your own worst critic. I'm so overly anal about certain aspects of a figure, like my eyes on figures and stuff like that. I'll spend way too long trying to get them right, and it's little things like that really bother me with my own customs. So I think what you're saying is exactly right. Sometimes you've just got to put it out there and say, hey, this is it. What do you think? Even if you're not 100% sure about it. I noticed on Elite Customs page the other day too, I can't remember the guy's name. He put something on that he thought was a bad custom that he made.
Yeah.
But he still put it out there, and that's something that I think shows some good grit and courage, because it happened. You worked hard on it. It's there. It happened. It hasn't exactly turned out how you wanted it, but it's there and it happened. And a lot of people can find something good in a custom, even if it's not exactly the way you wanted it to turn out. What do you think about that?
Yeah,
Brutus. Alan, you go first.
One that I was thinking of, I did that Dusty Rhodes from the Bunkhouse Stampede at 88. Just tried to do one, from a pay-per-view or whatever. Like, did you want to do the blood? Did you not want to do the blood? And it's like, I hadn't seen many like that. And then by the time I got to the point of putting the blood on it, I was cool with how it looked. But I was like, well, you've been planning on doing this the whole time. So I went ahead and did the blood. And I don't know. I'm not crazy about that, but that's the only way I'm going to know. Wanted to try it and see how it turned out. Don't hate it. Don't love it.
One of the things that interests me is there was 70 distinct LJ figure releases, and there's different styles of the figures. There's those really highly detailed ones, but there's the cartoony ones. But sometimes it seems there's a bit of an expectation that every customizer's figure has to look absolutely realistically lifelike to the actual individual. Now, that's okay, but sometimes having something that looks slightly different is capturing a person in motion. I mean, Dusty Rhodes always looked better when he was moving because he was a strange physique. And so you don't necessarily want absolute accuracy necessarily. Otherwise, you're just making, well, Tyler's not here, so we'll call it a figurine, like those sculpts. And, you want to pay some homage to the actual toys they were too. And some of those LJNs originally were very clunky, and you customizers actually sometimes make them look a lot better. So you mentioned Dusty. What are some of the other characters that you've made? This is a question Tyler really wanted to ask.
I did the Manny and Rude and Paul Jones kind of at the same time so that I could get that tag team going. Man, I don't know. It's hard to sit here and remember right off. I've gotten rid of a lot of mine. I did a couple Dusties.
Have you got any here that you can whip up quickly to show the viewers?
Yeah, I can show you some other way. I'll show you the Manny here quick. I got it laying here. So here's the Manny Fernandez. I think I sold one other, but
the Raging Bull. It's slightly blurry for people watching, but you can see Manny.
I'm sorry.
That's all right. We just had a bit of a sound glitch there. I was going to say it's a bit blurry on the camera, but you can see Manny coming through. You see those features there. So what about, do you have any LJN, like that Golden Age guys there as well, like who might not have got an LJN figure?
Oh, man. Let me look around here. I don't know what
While you're looking... While you're looking, Mike Steyer asked a question a little while ago I've been wanting to get to. What 3D scanner do you use? Do you do the 3D scanning? Someone else does it for you?
No, Kevin Pelkey does the scanning and the printing, so I'm not even sure what it is.
Yeah.
I think he's got printers now. He's he's a go-getter after it, so he could definitely get the information on it. I'm not sure what they are.
And there's a Facebook user that's asked, what is the most unique custom that you've both made? When he's saying both made, I think he's talking to both of us. But you go first, Alan.
I would say that Giant Gonzalez is different because there's really no LJN to that. That was a video game body and a bot head, and I don't do either one of the. It was kind of an out there deal. But I think it turned out pretty good. Like Kevin, that was Kevin's deal, and I thought it was a great idea. It looked great to me. I mean, for scale wise, it worked out really good, and so I mean, I thank him for that idea. But I'm really happy with how that one turned out.
And how tall was that figure?
Oh man,
off the top of your head,
I don't know. No, I sure don't know off the top of my head. He's a whole lot bigger than the other LJNs, though, if you hold him.
Oh, hold it up to the camera. Oh, look, yeah, quite a bit bigger. I would say that going off that, if that's an 8-inch figure, that's got to be a 10-inch figure, doesn't it? What do you think, Brutus? 9 to 10 inch, 9.5, 10?
I'd say nine and a half, but probably not as big as Paul Orndorff, though. But anyway. The most oversized figure. Oh, gee, and what a face. Paul Orndorff, Mr. Wonderful, handsome, muscular, and then they produced that witchy looking super guy. But it's good. He pops up a lot in Ultimate Warrior poses and different types of ones. So, that El Gigante looks pretty good. So Zash, what do you reckon? Given that you guys were probably going to talk about customs a bit more, should we go over some of the stuff for the upcoming Customania, which is happening soon, and some questions that guys might have?
I think that's a good idea. If anyone's listening that's got any questions about Customania, speak up. But before we get to it, what's David said here? David Garland's quickly written, do you come up with most ideas, or do people approach you with the ideas? Which one happens more often?
I spend a lot of time staring at figures, trying to figure out who they look like, just like everybody else, I guess. And but sometimes I've made quite a few for Jim Stewart, and he'll come to me with an idea that, hey, I want to try to do Wahoo, and we'll look around for Wahoo heads. He likes the button heads and stuff, But like Wahoo, we didn't find one. There's some of them that we're just not find one. But I would say most of the time I sit here and dream them up, just staring at them,
Yeah. And I do the same, mate. That's why my wife thinks I'm a weirdo. But moving on to Customania. How are you going for Customania, Alan? You ready? You good to go?
I'm going to give you what I got here. It's not probably the best ones, but I got 2 down and one that's just about done.
Yeah, I'll let the public decide. Let the public decide that. You guys are too critical of your own work, and your names won't be associated with your work. But of course, people, the viewers, the watchers, they'll be able to spot certain styles, and that's fine. An artist has a thumbprint, and it comes through in the work. So it's all right. It's anonymous, but of course we get an idea. But I reckon that one that LGN for Life ran, I could ID some of the guys straight away, but there was some I didn't know until the end. I said, "Oh, so you did that? You did the He-Man? I didn't realize that sort of stuff." So
but you do also second guess yourself as well. You don't know for sure, so you're sitting there going, "I think it's him, but how can I be sure it's him?" There's that element of I wonder if I'm right.
So, Alan, you said you've done 2 and you got a 3rd in the works. Sash, do people have to do 3 though? Is it mandatory that you've got to enter 3 figures for the 3 rounds?
Yes.
They have to do 3.
Yes.
What if they do? Yep. Oh, sorry. What if they do 2 real cracking figures, but they don't do a 3rd? Does that exclude them from the voting or anything?
Yes. You've got to enter 3. That's the one sort of rule of entry. It's no use you coming out with one good figure. It kind of will sway the way things are going. We don't want to have round 1 with 30 figures, round 2 with 24 figures, and round 3 with 12 figures. We don't want it to be like that. Every single round's got to have the same amount of figures, or the same amount of entries. You're allowed to have 2 figures in one entry if you want. But
like a tag team.
We want that's the one protocol we've got with the entry is that we want 3 rounds from each person, and we have sort of bent over backwards to allow it to be easier on certain people, or that struggle, by the way of saying that we haven't got that many rules. The rules are you can make anything that looks like a wrestler. It doesn't have to be an actual wrestler. It can be you dressed up as a wrestler, but it's got to be in wrestling sort of format. You can use any heads you want. You can sculpt it out of anything you want. You can be resin. It can be anything. I'm not saying you have to use LJN parts. You just have to make it look LJN stylish. I mean,
LJN style is
an 8-inch sort of looking figure. If you entered that, Giant Gonzalez, I'd be like, great, that's fantastic. I'm not going to sit there and say he's not 8-inch, he's not this, he's not that. We're not that strict on the rules, but we want a figure for each round. And I don't care if it's one of your older figures. That's fine as well. But you've got to have a figure for each round.
Does the figure have to be never been seen before, or can the guys have posted it at some stage?
No. Look, I understand that will defeat the whole purpose of people not knowing which customizer it is. If he's showing a custom that he's shown in the past, well, everyone's going to know who it is. But at the same token, we're not that strict in the sense that we want you to enter. And if you can only do 2 figures, give us one of your other figures, but preferably give us 3 rounds of new figures if you can. Because number one, people are going to vote more higher for a figure they haven't seen. If I posted one of my old figures, I'd expect that people have seen it all 1,000 times. They'll vote for something else that's new. You know, that's just the way these comps sort of tend to go.
Yeah, but of course you're not interested in entering Zash, but that was a good example. So if you have posted it before, that's not a problem. It would be better if you haven't, but don't let that dissuade you from entering, because it's a big ask to come up with 3 new things over these months. So that's not an issue. It'd be better if it's not, but it doesn't exclude you in any way. This is about getting, the best customizers and up and coming guys and guys who just want to have a crack at it, to enter their work. So with that, does it actually kick off? Zash?
Yeah, the 28th is going to kick off. We're going to be doing a podcast at the beginning of every round, which also will coincide with the end of every round, if you think of it that way, because round 1 will be flowing into round 2. So it'll be half an hour will be the end of round 1. The other half an hour of the podcast will be the beginning of round 2. So we'll be able to talk about the figures that's just been in round 1 in the podcast. We'll get some customizers on for 5-minute stints so they can have a little chat. Obviously not talking about the figures they've put in or anything like that, but just joining us for 5-minute sort of chats in between it. And then we'll go into the round 2 figures and talk about the figures, introduce them to everybody. It's the competition's only going to run for about a week and a half. So it's not going to go on for too long. Each round's not a week long or anything like that. They're only a few days long. So people aren't going to get bored of it. And you notice with these comps, the first couple of days, there's 100 people voting. And then the last couple of days, it's just turning quite stale. And there's the odd drib and drab here and there. So I made the decision where I thought we'd have it more of a shorter sort of round each round, just so we can keep the intensity up throughout the whole competition. I don't want it to be a 3-week competition where towards the end people are like, I'm so over this comp. It's Custom Mania. We've got to keep it sort of high energy the whole way through.
Yeah, and votes are all secret, aren't they? It's like they're clicking likes or they're clicking. Votes will be sent to someone. Me, I think, and we'll talk next week about specifically how to do that. That doesn't mean you can't comment online, but don't say, "Hey, Alan, I love your new work. That is fantastic." It's best if you probably say, "Hey, I like that one there of Magnum TA or whoever that is." So, does that, from your point of view, Alan, does that sort of make sense of what the requirements are?
Me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Makes sense to me. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I like these keep.
Yep.
I feel like you're exactly right. Everybody burns out after a little bit. You get tired of seeing the same one posted over and over again.
Yeah.
There was the big question on how we're going to do this. We all want to see crystal clear pictures of each custom. The main issue we've been having is how can we get so many pictures and so many clear big pictures up of each custom, but not have a million posts going down the page so you can't find certain figures. We have to keep it to one post. So I'm thinking the only way of doing it, and this is the first time I've spoken to Brutus about this in length. We've briefed on it a few times, but this is the main thing we've got to get sorted straight away. And if anyone's got any comments, speak up now, because we'd love to hear your opinions too. Tom's just said he's too modest. I'm sure you're talking about me, Tom. Thanks, mate. Just joking. Mike Stiers saying, how many entries do you have right now? Okay, Mike, I think we've got just one entry so far, but we've had a couple of people that say that they're smidgen off finishing. So we expect to get a few in over the next week. We've got 4 weeks left. So yeah, we've only got one in at the moment, but we've got a few that are quite close. But back to what I was saying regarding the pictures and stuff of the customs, I think it's going to have to boil down to we're going to have to do those. Is it what's that app called? The Pick, where you do all the photos in one sort of image. and then we'll have to put close-ups in the comments down. What was it?
Pick collage or something like that.
Pick collage, that kind of thing. We're going to have to probably do it that way, the same way as I think Rubber Rumble does it, and the same way LJM for Life did a lot of theirs. And then in the comments below,
my phone doesn't have any apps.
I'll take care of it, Brutus. Don't worry. If the people can do it themselves, fantastic. Otherwise, I can do the pick collage myself, put all their picks into it. And then what we do is they send us the big pictures as well. And in the comments down below of each round, we can put the close-up pictures of all their figures down in the comments. So what people do, they can look at the pick collage in the main thing and then look at the comments and go, I want to see a close-up of these, and they can just scroll down and look at all the close-ups. I think that is the only possible way of doing it. What do you guys think?
Yeah, that makes sense to me. So people send in 4 images, front, back, left, right. You put the main image like that, and then you'll have 1, 2, 3 if they're in landscape, but into a collage. And that will be named like Red Rooster 7 because there's going to be at least 6 other Red Roosters doodling around, right? And then underneath that, you put up the first image, the second image, the next one, so guys can see them up nice and big. I think that's an easy way to do it because we're getting the entries and then we're putting them up. So I reckon that will work quite well. So.
Yep. So maybe during the week we'll have a little mock testing on it. People can tell us what they think. Maybe I'll just get people to send me a bunch of their old customs and we can do a little Customania mock session. And people can just tell us what they think, tell us where we can improve, because I'd rather get people's thoughts on improvements before Customania rather than them say we should have done this and should have done that afterwards. What do you think, Alan? Are they all good points? Do you have anything to add?
Well, it sounds like a plan.
Okay, I've got a question from Tyler here, Alan. So he wanted to ask, what does your collection mean to you, and about how many customs do you have of your own and or of other guys?
I think I have 12 of mine left, and I would guess I've probably done 30 of them. I don't know. That's totally just a guess, but I don't have a whole lot of mine left. I like to start keeping them more. Like, it would totally make me happy just to get back to making them for myself. But, I say that, and then the next guy that gets a hold of me, I say, oh, yeah, sure, we can do that. And I keep going, which I know that he's the same way about that stuff. But, I love collecting. I've been collecting forever. Like I said, my wife and I are big collectors of all 80s toys. But just over the past, ever since the beginning of the lockdown and stuff, I've been pretty hardcore just on the wrestling stuff. And so, I love it. It means a lot. That's kind of what we do in our pastime.
Yep. And this
is an awesome question here from David, isn't it?
Yeah.
Read that out, Brutus.
So David Garland's asking, question for everyone. What's the most common custom you see, or maybe you've done yourself? So that's for both you guys, I suppose.
Alan, shoot away.
One I see a lot that I just can't deal with myself is the Barbarian from the Macho Man figure. I just feel like I've seen 1,000 of those, and I'm not a fan of that. But I think that's the one of the more common ones I see.
Yeah. He says Hollywood Hogan's another one from Jesse Ventura. That's been going back from when I first started making customs. That was the thing that everyone started with. The Hollywood Hogan from Jesse Ventura. You don't need to change the head. You don't need to do anything. All you have to do is change the color of the mustache. Some people like to turn their hand around a little bit, and it's almost there, ready to go, isn't it?
And that's good. It gives guys an opportunity, to there's no law that says customs must be this total new creation of artwork. And so if that's something there that's ready to go, just happen to have a Jesse just here. All right, this is a P1 Jesse, by the way, if people want to go into what the codes mean. Yeah, Hollywood Hulk Hogan, can work on that one. Oh no, that's just too much. We better move away on that one.
Oh, it's beautiful. Look at that head.
No, that wasn't so beautiful.
No. Do you know what the funny thing is? I've done over 350 customs in the past however many years. It's a lot of customs. These aren't customs of just repaints. These are full customs. So I work quite hard on them. I've got this nighttime addiction where I swap sleeps for customizing. But the one thing I still struggle with to this day is turning Jesse Ventura's hand from that to that. And every time I do it, I've got a bulge in the back wrist or a bulge here. And I see other people do it and they get the perfect wrist like this. And my wrist looks broken. I'm going, I can't get that wrist right. Have you ever done that, Alan? Or is it just me that can't do that damn wrist?
I think I've done one like that, and it turned out pretty decent. They'll about go back online right for you sometimes. So I don't know.
Maybe it's just me. I'm not a sculptor. I don't know. That wrist, just from going like that to turning it like that, it just doesn't look right. I just can't get the bloody thing right. Little things we struggle with. We all struggle with different things, us customizers. You know, like you can get a beginner that can do a certain thing better than a guy that's been doing it forever. And that's just the joys of customizing. Certain people do certain things better than others. But I would like to get one more point. Can I get one more point on Custom Mania, apart from the fact I haven't showed my shirt off yet? Custom Mania and my mug. That's pretty cool, isn't it? But what I wanted to say is, LJN guys, look out, because it may not be an LJN customizer that wins LJN Custom Mania. Let me just put that out there, because there's some Mattel guys, there's some Hasbro guys that want to get on board this competition. And I'm telling you, I know at least one of the Mattel guys that is one of the best customizers I know is planning to enter Custom Mania. And there's no stopping these guys from other brands from entering it. Bring it on. But LJN guys, get your act together, because we cannot have a Mattel customizer beating us LJN customizers at our own game. Surely.
Well, Zash's enthusiasm is amazing, and he almost lets too much out of the bag. But I can say that's why the votes are going to me, because I'll say nothing.
What do you mean nothing? I'm allowed to say that Mattel customizers are entering the comp.
Yeah.
They're hitting me. I'm the host. They're coming at me saying, what can I do to enter this comp? Well, you can make an LJM figure and enter the comp. Anyone can do it. I don't care if you've never made a custom before. You can be anyone in the world can enter this competition, except for me. I'm not allowed.
Except for you and me.
And you, Brutus. Yeah, with your digital customs.
Well, technically, a photograph of a custom is a digital custom. But anyway, but that's okay. That's fine. I understand where I am on the pecking order. Point. Yeah, I mean, you know, I flicked a few to you. Little Beaver and Lord Littlebrook. A couple of newer ones there. So a question I've often asked of all the guys, Alan, because, you know, I don't have the skills that you guys do, is like, were you good at art when you were young, or good at sculpting, or good with your hands, or is this something that's come along later in life?
I've always been a little bit artsy, I guess. I kind of do some side stuff. Nothing real crazy. Like I don't know. I had a guy painted. He had a basketball court in his barn, and he wanted all these big basketball players painted around the walls and things like that. Just little side jobs. But I mean, I've always kind of liked artistic stuff. You know, I've always been kind of artsy.
Yeah, because Kevin, when we asked Kevin Swales that, he said how he can do portraits and other things as well. But being Kevin, he downplayed it because, you know, actually all of your customizers downplay your skills and abilities, which is really probably why the community works so well. Because, you know, if we talk about, you know, I mentioned influencers before, but there's a lot of people nowadays who say how they're the best at everything they do, and it's quite refreshing. And I think we had Tom Ward say before about your modesty as well. And your name comes up a lot in a lot of favorite guys' lists as well of customizers. You, Mr. Swales as well, and, you know, along with a lot of the big names that we know. So, Zash, you said you had 350 custom figures of your own. And
not
Alison,
that
he's
I
got
own.
that
Not
you've
that I own.
made.
They're what I've made. They're including ones I've made for people and stuff. Over 300.
And Alan has just about 12 or so. And so do either of you guys have trouble in letting your babies go, or is it like in some cases it's done, it's going to a better home?
Alan?
I'll say that Magnum TA that I just sold him, I didn't really care to see that one go. I liked how it turned out pretty good. That's probably
it was pretty
one
good.
I've missed.
Yeah,
I was pretty happy with him, and it was kind of hard to let him go.
Yeah, and that's quite a special character as well. I mean, Magnum was all set really, and we, back when we were younger, we got it through the wrestling mags, Magnum's fight. So that was a pretty cracking figure. What about you, Zash? Do you ever have trouble letting your babies go, or?
Yeah, certain ones. If recently I posted on there about my Bret Hart figure, that figure for me was a bit of a turning point for me in a lot of ways, and it had a lot of me in it, in the fact that I spent a lot of time on it, and I went through a lot of emotions while I did that figure, and every time I look at it, them emotions sort of came back to me. So I sort of stuck him on the shelf, and I never really put him out there to show people, apart from on my own personal page. He was something that was just done for me. I put him in the competition, but he was done just for me. And recently I spoke to Jeremiah, who really wanted it, and he asked me quite a few times, and I gave in to the fact of selling it, and I thought, I looked at it then, and I thought, this isn't right with it. That's not right with it. I can't send it out like this. So I've spent 2 nights on it, fixing it up, because what I did last year isn't the same as what I'm doing this year. And every single year, my style changes a little bit. And I didn't want to send it out with certain things that were on it. So I've made some changes on it, and I've sent it. I haven't sent it out yet because I finished it last night, but I'll be sending that out to him, and that's gone. But to be honest, I'm glad to get rid of it now, because the past 2 nights has drove me crazy trying to fix him up, and I've turned off him quite a bit. So we're no longer friends. He can go.
He can go. Yeah,
sometimes these customs just turn you crazy. You just go, I'm sick of looking at this thing. Get rid of it. Get it out of my face.
Shad made an interesting comment from what you guys were saying before. He said the lack of ego within the groups is refreshing. And so that's, I suppose, we've been talking about community and connectedness over the last few weeks, and Alan was talking earlier how he's in touch with certain guys almost every day. Was it who, and then dealing with a guy up in Maine, and keeping in touch with Kevin down in Texas as well. And so it's a way of being connected, and customizers, you get instant recognition for your work, generally favorable, sometimes critical, good critical, a critique, but sometimes other critical, which is not always all that welcome. But it's good to see that connection. And from my point of view, if we don't have customizers creating new things, then our hobby just stops. We've only got the figures. They're quite expensive to buy for a lot of guys now, and you guys are moving it forward. And so that's a way of actually mixing your enjoyment now as a mature adult with the nostalgia and love that you had back then as the little kid. So, Alan said he was 6 or 7. WrestleMania 3 was his intro. Zash has got photos of himself dressed up as different characters from when he was a little guy. And so, it's guys seem to really enjoy that sort of being connected.
Definitely.
Yep.
And
I would say, like, since I started talking to Kevin Pelkey, like, honestly, he's probably one of my better friends, and I've never met the guy in real life. Same way with Tom. I met Tom for 2 minutes, but Tom is I gotta say, Tom gets better with every figure that he does. Like, I haven't noticed anyone that gets remarkably better with every figure is what Tom does, and that dude works hard at what he's doing. And he, you're talking about the critique stuff, and he's all about that, and he'll take what I give him and give me back what I need critiquing, and like as far as the friendship thing, we're actually going on vacation to Maine here in a couple weeks, and it just happens that our route's going right through there where Kevin lives, and so I'm probably going to get to meet him in person now. I mean, we talk all day, every day. So yeah, I mean, I've made. I'm not a super social guy and have a whole lot of friends that I run around with, and I've made great friends just through this stuff. I mean, for no other reason than this.
That's a great way of connecting. And yeah, you mentioned not being a super social guy, and this is a good way to find like-minded souls who actually enjoy the same sort of passion. And you know, for guys like us, we're in Australia. I mean, we're a long way away. So and we're not going to connect because Australia is a big country like the USA. And actually, I'm not connecting with anyone because we're locked down again. So that's okay. Now, you whipped a question up there, Zash, or a comment. Yep.
I think it's more of a comment. You can read it out.
Okay, so from David Garland, again, he's a person who's often tuning in. The LJN online communities are the best I've found. Guys are always extremely friendly. I'm in a G.I. Joe Facebook group. It's just awful. Oh, well, suck it up, you maggot. Right. Nah, David, that was a joke, right? Yeah, look, I had to do a lot of early research for the LJN book in the other forums to actually learn about coding and manufacturing processes and that. Those Star Wars guys are pretty precise if you don't know your stuff. The Transformers guys, well, they're interesting bunch too. But I reckon, the G.I. Joes would be an interesting group with military precision of cutting someone down. So thanks for that, David. I mean, I suppose a lot of the guys in the wrestling forums have got a bit of a sense of humor because professional wrestling is an interesting hobby. You know, it's and back the golden age, you know, you had some funny characters. Morocco and Fuji, you know, and some of the stuff they did was really quite funny. So maybe the wrestling fans actually don't take themselves as seriously as some of the other people in the forums. All right. So G.I. Joe, way to go. Is that the catchphrase?
G.I.
I don't
Joe,
know.
way to go. That's it. I think is that a new one? Have you made that up, or is that an actual G.I. Joe thing?
I don't know. It's G.I. Joe wasn't really big down in Australia when I was younger. It certainly is huge now. Yeah.
I knew of it. That's about as far as it went. I think I had some G.I. Joe figures that I used to drop off the top of the Woolworths ramp, and they had parachutes, and they used to float to the bottom. Was that G.I. Joe?
They could have been a generic or some generic figures. We had lots of toy soldiers down here because of the English Matchbox influence. And because of our role essentially in World War II. So G.I. Joe just wasn't such a big thing down in Australia early on, but certainly became very big. I don't even know if the cartoon was on. Someone could correct me on that. It probably was, but G.I. Joe, is it All-American Hero and American Hero?
Yeah? No, I would never know. Well, we're going to wrap things up soon, guys. Alan, have you got anything more to say? What have you got planned in the works at the moment? Any new customs that, not including Custom Mania, we can't talk about that, but anything outside of Custom Mania you want to chat about?
No, I'm
going to think of something. You put on the spotty.
Pretty early stages right now.
You got some orders or anything that you're going to be working on?
No, actually, right now is probably the first time in 6 months at least that I don't have anybody waiting on anything. So that feels pretty good right now.
Do you want to swap with me?
No, I've seen some of your orders. I no thanks.
I'm biting off way more than I can chew. Oh God. And before we go on to you, Brutus, Jake Alvarado says, how many WWF LJN is in the set? Is 177 guys or 114 guys? This is for you, Brutus.
Well, he must be counting bendies, thumb wrestlers, and that. There's 70 distinct LJN singles card releases plus one LJN or not LJN. Well, it was the Hasbro Sergeant Slaughter. So 70 distinct. There's 7 tag teams. There was 18 bendies, 6 bendy tag team backpacks. There was 1 bendy Hogan with the ring. There was 12 different characters of thumb wrestlers. There's 20 known and verified thumb wrestler twin packs. There's 8 stretch wrestlers, 2 giant wrestlers, and I think that's it.
Variants?
But, oh, well, where do you begin and where do you stop? I mean, is this a variant? A light? Is that that's a super light coloured pink Jessie, blonde and blonde. That's a P1. I don't know. It's 70 figures plus 1. I mean, if you're collecting loose, that's your 2 SDs, your 2 refs, your 2 Hogans plus the original Hogan. 70 plus 1 if you want Slaughter or not, if you got the money to get a Slaughter.
Okay, well, there's the long-winded answer for your question, Jake. I hope that was specific enough. You can't get any more specific than Brutus's. Brutus, show the book to Jake just in case he hasn't got it.
Just in case he hasn't.
This book, Jake, you can get that from where, Brutus?
Well, it's just the LJN Wrestling Superstars book. This is the checklist for the figures.
So that is the absolute Bible there. If anybody out there wants to have any information about LJN, you can almost guarantee it's going to be in that book. Yep, so almost, I think it's what's the website called?
It's the LJN Wrestling Superstars book. So you just put all that together, the LJN Wrestling Superstars book.com. And and I just got the reprint, so I've got plenty. I got boxes coming out of my everywhere.
There's a Hasbro book as well.
There's the Hasbro
package for both of them.
Yeah, you can get a bundle package. Grenville is still working through the pre-orders. There's the Hasbro book. The Hasbro. So all your collecting knowledge.
Back up again. Okay, so you can buy that on the same website?
Yeah, you can get that through the same website, or look for that on the Hasbook, or just go to that person Brutus Valentine on Facebook who puts up some links occasionally. But
beautiful. Well, there it is, guys. That's our 16th episode. Remember, 4 weeks left till Custom Mania. So if you're a customizer, finish them up, get them sorted, or, take your time. There's still 4 more weeks, but, get working on them. If you're a voter, start to think about what you like in customs, start to think about what you're going to be voting for, whether it be your favorite wrestler, which I'm not a big fan of, but some people like to vote their favorite wrestler. I can't tell you what you can and can't vote for, but I prefer you vote for your favorite custom rather than your favorite wrestler. You might be into the paintwork, you might be into the sculpting, you might be into all sorts of things, but have a think about what you like to vote for. There's going to be some amazing figures coming up in Custom Mania, biggest custom LJN custom competition in the world. So, yep, get ready, guys. 4 weeks away. Thanks for coming on, Alan. Thanks for
thank you so much.
Talking to us today.
Yeah.
And Brutus, thanks for joining us, mate. David and Talking Tyler Peters and the poor daddy David Fine will be back next week. Thank God we'll have an intro and an outro, because I'm going to end this broadcast. There'll be no outro, you can guarantee it. But it'll all be back next week. So
thanks for putting this all together at short notice too. So yeah.
Not a problem, guys. I hope I did okay. And thanks to everyone for viewing, and we'll see you all next week.
Okay.
Bye.